Microphone check. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. The Coffee and Biscotti Show. I'm your host, Crew Mel Bellissimo. Today is Friday, June 10th, just past 12 o'clock Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And if I'm sounding a little like Mickey Mouse, well, it's okay. I like him anyway. The nose is a little plugged today, my friends. Wherever you are in the world, I hope that you are doing awesome. It's 1 week, my friends. Mr. Poutine Nation, always a pleasure to have you, sir. I want you to know that next week's show has to be very special because it's yours truly's birthday. That's right. I'm turning 39, and that's what I'm sticking with. I thought that there was a rule that you don't go past 39 years old, and you just sort of keep repeating 39, 39, 39. Mr. Josh, it's always a pleasure to have you. I hope you've had an awesome week. We got to catch up on some stuff, my friend. We got to talk about designing your beautiful life webinar, because I think all the stuff is ready, my friend, for that. My friends, it's been a week. I don't follow the news much. I don't really want to hear any negative things, so I stay away. Hello, Sandra Mio. Welcome. Welcome to my friend who I said before on the show that if I likened her to a candy, she would be a lifesaver. Yeah, I like it. Welcome everyone to the show. My friends, I got a great show for you today. I thought a little bit about today's show as far as how I was going to give my what I call blushtro. My guest is backstage, and I'm going to do my best to make this absolutely stunning looking, beautiful goddess blush before she gets onto the show. But let's do a little bit of a catch up. Lots of exciting things happening this week or this weekend. Richard Atkinson is going to be visiting us here in our nation's capital. And we are going to be joined by former amateur Canadian heavyweight champ Calvin Lawrence. They will be here hanging out, visiting and doing some touristy things here. So I'm excited for that. And, things are looking up. I feel this dark cloud that has been here slowly start to dissipate. And I have to tell you that I had a wonderful chat with my guest yesterday. And I think that if you're around her enough, you can just see all the negative energy move away because she's a ray of sunshine. My friends, I went to an event last week, a networking event with a former guest of the show, Majid. And of course, I was with my friend Tuan, who of course has been on the show as well. And I got a chance to meet this woman. She stuck out amongst the rest. That's the truth. So I had an opportunity to, over some really loud music, try to have a conversation. But we managed to connect and sort of exchange Instagrams and what have you. And I told her that she needed to be on my show. I'll tell you why. Because this story has all the elements that resonate with me. A story about music. She's a concert cellist. Yeah, you heard me right. She is a concert cellist that has played on Broadway. She is a mother of two beautiful children. And things, as they unfolded in her life, brought her to one of my other passions, the world of healing and spirituality. And I mean, it doesn't get it doesn't get much better for me. Music and spirituality. No wonder why she's this powerful goddess. You can feel it when you meet her. She came across to me as somebody who was very quiet, very sort of centered. But when you hang around her, you can feel the energy. And she's an expert at feeling yours. I didn't know what how I was going to introduce her today because there's so much of her story that touches my heart. It doesn't matter what compartment of your life you're talking about. Yesterday, we spoke about loving relationships and the trials and tribulations of loving relationships. That part of that is what sort of moved her towards this life of spirituality and healing. And the work that she is doing now. She's going to talk a little bit about some of her projects today. She promised that she was going to share with us a little bit of this big project that she's working on that I hope, my friends, that I hope I will be part of in some capacity. But I love it because not only is she involved in healing, but she studied with the Eighth Fire School of Shamanism, which is an Algonquin energy medicine, and she studied 7 years. And of course, you know, if you don't know what the Algonquin energy medicine is, we're talking about indigenous teachings, indigenous healing modalities. And I mean, listen, this is again right up my alley. I think that what's surprising is that when you take a look at her, she could be a professional model. I mean, really. She's just, I said to her yesterday, man, did God ever bless you? Her parents were professional musicians. And she sort of went down that path. And of course, I just love it because she's lived this life, and we're going to talk about this life of music. Was it something that she really wanted to do? Is it something that really touched her heart? Was she living somebody else's narrative by doing music? We're going to find that out today, my friends. Shout out to Dude Buddha, Mr. Tuan Nguyen in the house. Shout out to Franny. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations, Franny, on your job. You're going to do awesome. My friends, it's time to bring on our guest. So please, wherever you are in the world, I would like for you to get off of your comfortable seat and put your hands together for the very beautiful Beth Sturdevant. And the crowd goes wild. Hello, Beth.
Hello. What? I mean, that introduction. That was art.
Art in motion,
That was
poetry in
art
motion.
in motion. Yes.
Beth, what an absolute pleasure to have you. I know that the people in the chat are going, holy shit. I mean, you're stunningly beautiful. And what I love about this is, and we spoke yesterday, is that the beauty on the outside clearly is there. But what enticed me, what got me, what touched my heart is the soul energy, the light that you put forward into the world and the work that you're doing. Because I think that many of us would agree that when we meet someone, we take a look at what they look at on the outside. But how many of us spend the time to get to know somebody on the inside?
Mm.
And I am very, very honored to have you on the show. We've got some great people in our audience today that, in fact, my dear friend, my lifesaver friend, Sandra Mia, said she's been following you for quite some time.
Oh,
And I
beautiful.
said, yeah, well, you did well, Sandra Mia. Beth, I'm honored to have you. I'm happy that you're spending 90 minutes with me because I think that your story has a lot of life lessons. And I think that somebody is going to look at the show and say, yeah, I can really resonate with Beth. And how did she end up down this road? So, as I start all my shows, Beth, I want to go right to the beginning. Paint us a picture of who this incredible goddess really is.
From the beginning.
Wherever you want to start. But did you grow up in Ottawa? Are you an Ottawan?
I did. I grew up. My parents moved here from the States before I was born, so I grew up in Ottawa. Both, like you had mentioned, both my parents are classical musicians, so they came here to play in the symphony here. So I grew up in that environment of, you know, music and arts, and um, which was really lovely, really wonderful environment. And yeah, so I grew up doing that, and then as was to be expected, my parents got to the point, okay, you got to play an instrument, right? But my heart never really called out to it. And in fact, I have a brother, a younger brother, and an older sister. My brother's in the U.S. Navy. My sister lives down in Virginia Beach, and neither of them are musicians. So I never really wanted to play the cello or an instrument, but because, they wanted me to, and I had to pick one. I chose the cello because that was not what my mother played, and that was not what my father played. They played the viola and the trumpet. And then a friend of my mother's was driving through town, and they had a little cello that their daughter had outgrown. So I was like, I guess I'll play the cello. But as fate would have it, I'm very grateful that the cello found me because it's an amazing instrument. And it's been an incredible journey on it. Um, so yeah, I grew up doing the cello, and what was interesting is that, especially in the early 80s when I grew up, that's kind of when they started to assess kids, right? Started to really differentiate kids, would say, into finding out what made them different.
Right.
And I don't believe that's a healthy thing at all. I understand why they do it. I do have a degree in education as well as a degree in music performance. So I get it. I understand why and the needs, but I do feel like that really shapes people in not so healthy ways because you start to identify as being different in perhaps not smart or whatever it is. So for me, I got diagnosed as being I don't know, ADD, learning disabilities, whatever, a whole bunch of stuff. And with that, you start to think, okay, well, maybe I'm not smart enough. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm not like Katie over there who's getting all A's in math and science and French. And okay, well, I guess I can't make it academically or in that way. Well, who am I? Right? Who am I? I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. Who am I? So then you become really impressionable and you start to kind of perhaps look for different ways of finding yourself that might not be so healthy. Thankfully, I had the cello because that, while I didn't choose the cello per se, the environment that I grew up with it in music, it's so powerful and beautiful. Um, it really helped me go down a healthy path, a healthier path, right? So then I went to arts high school, went to three high schools actually. At that time, we had grade 13, right? So
Hmm.
I went to one high school, and then I went to an arts high school in Ottawa. Then I finished high school in Michigan. There's a big arts high school called Interlochen Arts Academy. So I went there. Then all for cello. Then I went to university in the States for music as well, conservatories, what have you. And all the while, you're trying to find yourself because I didn't really, again, my heart wasn't called to the cello, and it's a brutal world, classical music. I mean, you said yesterday that you also are a musician, had
I
done music.
studied at the conservatory too, the Royal Conservatory in Toronto.
It's brutal, brutal. quite traumatic environment, especially when you get up to the, you know, the big leagues. Um,
I can only imagine.
yeah,
And I
even
mean, money's not a huge thing. Like, I mean, my all my brothers played. My middle brother Frank, he would have been the most successful out of all of us. He traveled across Canada playing, but there's really such shitty money in it.
well, there can be great money. I mean, it depends on, again, there's like the pendulum. It's like it's either you're doing extremely successful or
That's right.
you're like in poverty trying to
That's right.
like scrape by.
Exactly. Not a lot of middle ground.
There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was this an interesting journey. So I, you know, I turned to alcohol a lot because for me, throughout university, you know, there's partying, sex, drugs, and classical music. You know, you think of classical musicians
I
as
love it.
being this like ooh, pristine environment, and
Right.
there is that, but there's also a very toxic, traumatic aspect of it. So, you know, I'd be partying a lot, and it was fun, and I had great experiences. Um, but still never felt whole. Even while I'm doing this and I'm playing these amazing concerts and I'm meeting these incredible people and I'm traveling around the world, I don't feel whole. So I'm turning to abusive means to, say, try and fill that void. So after university, I went to Banff for a year. There's a artists community or center, art center there. Um, an incredible place, Banff Center for the Arts. So I went there to kind of practice and prepare for auditions and figure out what I wanted to do next. And then I met a Greek French horn player there, and we got into a relationship. So then I decided to move out to Greece, to Athens, to be with him. And there I played with orchestras, which was really fun. And again, all
Wow.
wonderful experiences,
I was
right?
gonna say, like, Beth, to be honest with you,
I know.
I feel like what's most amazing is that even while having these experiences, which are like
Hmm.
most people don't get an opportunity to go to Greece and play in a symphony orchestra in
No,
Greece. You know what I
we
mean?
don't.
So
We
the
don't.
experiences are great, but I love that you still talk about that inner, you know,
100%.
that's
And
powerful.
the key thing is that when I say I went to 3 high schools, I went to 3 universities, and I never lived anywhere for more than 2 years. Throughout this,
Mm.
so when I left Ottawa when I was, what, 16, 17, until oddly enough, I came back to Ottawa. Within that span of, you know, maybe 15 years or so, I moved every 2 years, including schools. I switched universities, bam, 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 because I didn't feel whole. I was desperately searching for who am I? That question you asked, who are you?
Mm.
Um, and so even in Greece, you know, I remember wonderful boyfriend, really amazing guy, wonderful family, like amazing experience, nothing to complain about. But I remember coming to this pinnacle moment where I was like, this could go down a path where we get married, we have children, it's going to be wonderful, this fantastic. But I said, this is not me. This is not me. Not yet. I'm not there yet. So I left him and I moved to Toronto. I quit the cello. I became a personal trainer. I did personal training in Toronto for a year. Um, but then, as fate would have it, a music contractor in Toronto found out that I was there, contacted me and asked if I wanted to play a musical. I said, okay, sure. So I did. Through him, it's funny how, you know, when you can look back at all the pieces, you really get a sense of, oh, this is why this happened. This was, you know,
How you can put it together.
yeah. So through this guy, a contractor in New York City knew him and said, I'm putting together an orchestra or a band, we should say, to tour a Disney musical in the States for a year. Do you have any musicians that you could recommend? And he said, actually, there's this cellist I know. So the New York contractor got in touch with me, said, do you want to play this musical? And so there I was back in music again, which was fine.
What was the musical, Beth?
It was called On the Record. It was like this musical that Disney put together just to see if it would be feasible for Broadway. It was a, it was fun. It was fun. It was kind of a mishmash of all musicals put together, like in a recording studio. So I did that for a year, back into music. Um, Partied a lot on the road. Uh, Again, still not feeling whole, but it was fantastic because you're moving around every 2 weeks, different cities. You don't have to stay put.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, okay, well, where do you go but next, Beth? And so actually, I was thinking, well, New Zealand or New York? Why New Zealand? To me, it felt like utopia. This beautiful place. I loved Lord of the Rings, the books, and the movies. I don't know. I was thought I would go there, but I decided to choose New York because I had a lot of connections there from the musical. And as soon as I went to New York, it was like my heart was just like, I'm home. Like it was amazing. Um, and then as soon as I got there, it was one thing after another. Um, of good stuff. I got a Broadway gig right, literally 1 month after moving to New York, which does not happen. I was on a, um, gosh, now I can't think of it. Pajama Game with Harry Connick Jr. So that doesn't happen. Usually, when you go to New York and you're trying to get into the Broadway or to the freelance music scene, you have to put in the work. You have to make connections. You start playing smaller gigs. People get to know who
Of
you are.
course. Yeah.
But right away, I got that gig, which was great money, wonderful opportunity. Harry Connick Jr. can't go wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
Um,
going to say Harry, just Harry Connick
it's
Jr.
Harry Connick Jr. So that was fun. And then I met my roommate at the time. He's a fashion photographer, just moved there from California. He and I started a relationship. And so that started to develop. And then after the Harry Connick Jr. gig, I got called to play in the orchestra with Barbara Streisand. So
Holy
then
shit.
I know, like all these kind of, how does this happen? You can't make it happen. Okay. You can't make this happen. I did not plan any of this. Again, I'm doing all these amazing things, but internally, I'm still not feeling whole. So they're great experience. We'll call them distractions almost. They're great. They're miniature like moments of time, and they're fun and they're wonderful, and you meet great people and great experiences, and um, literally no complaints. But all the while, I'm still occasionally abusing alcohol. Why? Because there's still that void inside of me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Nothing that's at the detriment of who I was or my work or anything, but at the detriment of myself, my own ego, how I felt about myself.
Right.
So I went toured with Barbara Streisand, which was great. And then I came back and that's awesome. Dude, Buddha plays the oboe too.
Mr. Twan.
That's awesome. Um, when I came back, as fate would have it, I got pregnant with my then fiance, the photographer, and that took life in a completely different direction, completely, because it wasn't planned. I didn't want to have children at the time. I was just starting out in my career, and in fact, my number one fear when I found out I was pregnant, and I said to my ex before I even told him I was pregnant, I said, "Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me," was what I said. And he, was very supportive. I love you. We're going to do this together. Yada yada yada. 5 months later, he left me. I knew. You're intuitively, your body knows. I get a little teary thinking of it. So that took me down a complete different direction. I wasn't because I didn't really know who I was at the time. I was still discovering that. I didn't feel strong enough to stay in New York by myself as a single parent. So I went back to Ottawa to be with my parents to kind of reassess, like, what the heck do I do now? you know.
Right.
He and I reconciled about a month before I gave birth. Then we had our first child. I moved back to New York. And then it was kind of a rocky year of trying to get back in the scene. You feel like your partner has one foot in the door, one foot out the door. You don't like you're on very, very crumbly ground.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that wasn't a fun year. I'm not gonna lie. Then a year later, when my son turned 1, I was pregnant again. I became pregnant again. Um, and he did it again. He left me this time for good. Cheated on me, left me. So at that point, single mom with 2 kids, um, being in New York City by myself wasn't even a conscious possibility for me. So I packed up and I moved up to Canada for good. I never wanted to be in Ottawa. Um, it's funny how the things we seemingly don't want in life are the things that we need,
Of course.
right? So the cello
Of course.
is what I needed. My children, I didn't necessarily want children, but I needed them for my own development as a person and soul. And so they chose me. Um, Moving back to Ottawa, I didn't want to live here, but it's what I needed to be where I am today. So I didn't know that at the time. So I came back and I started to study to be a music teacher, cello teacher. Never wanted to be. I don't love teaching cello. It's same with the personal training. I never really loved teaching personal training
Mm.
but I did it. I went back to school, got another degree in education. Um, and all the while, I'm still trying to figure out who the heck I am. Here now I'm playing music. I didn't really choose music. I don't really love music to that capacity. I didn't choose to be a single mom, but here I am as a single mom. I didn't choose to be single, but here I am single. And I didn't choose to be in Ottawa, but here I am in Ottawa. So while I'm still doing these things and doing them well, because that's the kind of person that I am.
Well, I was just going to say, like, Beth, you didn't really want to play and you made it as far as you did.
Yeah,
Imagine you really wanted to play.
exactly. Exactly. Right. That's the key. I think
Remarkable.
that you hit it on
Re-
the nail. Like,
remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
imagine if you know who you are and you're doing the things you love to do, how much you can actually do them better. So that it's just vital in order to knowing who you are is vital, but it doesn't come easy and it's very hard. And so we get shaped by all these experiences that we have.
Oh,
Um,
and influenced by so many others.
so many others, and we haven't even talked about like the traumas and the date rapes and all those other things that and the anorexia when I was a teen, and those other things that shape you as well, subconsciously and energetically. um
I want to ask you first, though, Beth, before we go down that path, because
sure.
I think it's important. I think that that's part of the story that really is gripping. That really this beautiful woman had all these challenges. Real, how is that even possible? I know that a lot of people will say that, but I
Mhm.
want to ask you just a couple of music questions first. So, number one for me is: was there a cellist that sort of inspired you, motivated you?
Great question. There is a poster right here above my computer. Jacqueline Dupre. Jacqueline Dupre was a British cellist who, full of life and vitality and energy and just inner beauty, like you said.
Hmm.
And she married Daniel Barenboim, who is a very famous pianist and conductor. And then she was best friends with Pinka Zuckerman, who used to conduct here, and very famous violinist and really wonderful cellist. And then she got MS, and she, gosh, I think it was her late 20s, couldn't play anymore. She couldn't hold the bow on stage. The bow would fall. And then Danielle Barenboim, while she was sick in bed towards the end of her life, started a family with somebody else without letting her know. Like, just a really horrible end to this woman's beautiful life.
Wow.
Yeah, but she was gorgeous. Gorgeous, and I'm not saying in the physical beauty way. Well, yes, she was pretty, but gorgeous in her playing, in her energy, in her what she brought to this world, you know.
Yeah.
So if you ever have an opportunity, Jacqueline Dupre, Elgar cello concerto, it's it's magic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And as far as music goes, who did you play with that I mean, you've had Harry Connick and Barbara Streisand. I mean, they're both very famous in their own right, of course. But was there somebody that you played with that was like almost you were starstruck by?
Mm. You kind of almost forget some of the people you play with.
Because you must have played with some serious musicians.
Uh, yes, I have, but I don't know if you get really starstruck. I mean, I've met a lot of, well, no, I'm not gonna, I don't think there's anybody. I would say the first time I heard Barbara Streisand, and I've never was a Streisand fan. I didn't
Right.
really know much about her. The first time I heard her sing live, I was like, whoa, okay, she's legitly talented, because sometimes you wonder how much stuff is going on backstage that makes them who they are, but she's legitimately talented and powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's starstruck so much as respect. Harry Connick Jr. I respect because he's hardworking and he's such a great guy and so talented and committed and just so great. And then, I've had some amazing teachers, but I mean, in university growing up, you play in master classes and you have guest teachers come who are, very famous, and you do feel a little bit starstruck and terrified,
I was going to say,
you know.
probably more terrified than starstruck.
Yeah, terrified
I
is
believe it.
more
Yeah.
the word. So
Yeah.
for sure.
Because
Yeah.
I asked that question because as a guy who grew up with music his whole life, my brother Frank, who was a drummer, he introduced me to the people like Steve Gadd and Dave Weckl and Vinnie Caliuta and what's his face there, the other drummer, uh, what's his name? But Buddy Rich, who he would explain to me, would teach a workshop, and he'd have a quarter on the wall, and with his drumsticks keep the quarter on the wall. That's how fast his hands would move. I was a trumpet player, so Wynton Marsalis and
Yeah.
Miles Davis and Doc Severinsen and all of these
Yeah.
these were people, like, if I saw them, I was like, if I were ever to run into them, I go, holy shit, like,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know this is what for me was you know really powerful. My cousin Mike was a trumpet player and trumpet teacher, and he introduced me to a guy named Arturo Sandoval, who was a fabulous trumpet player.
Mhm.
And so I asked because there's so many people that I've sort of listened to along the way who, man, if I ever got a chance to meet them, they were just like,
Well, yeah, I mean, I've met Yo-Yo Ma, and that.
wow, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
when I was
That's
younger, I met
yeah,
him, and he was my idol growing up, and hearing him play. So I guess in that sense, for sure, I was probably starstruck. I think I cried a little, not when I met him, but while he was playing.
yeah, yeah. The
Hmm.
energy, the emotion of the music that comes out, eh?
Yeah, and just having that moment where somebody that you idolize is there in the flesh,
Yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to take that side for that because I love music so much that it's really such a pleasure to be able to talk to somebody. I mean, Harry Connick Jr. My connection to Harry Connick Jr. is I had a friend who was a dear friend of mine for many years, still is. His name's Paul. He had a guy that was touring with Harry Connick Jr. that was sort of helping build the stage for Harry Connick.
Mm.
So that was my connection to him.
I'll tell you a
And
funny story after.
please.
Okay. I played with him also after I moved back from New York. Um, Harry came to Toronto Jazz Festival.
Of course.
And so they called me up to ask if I'd come out and play. And so I know some people in his band and stuff. So I went there, and it was during the G20 summit. So you couldn't get anywhere. You couldn't. All the subways were closed. It was just hard to get places. So when you do a gig like this, you usually show up about 2 hours before. Little quartet were accompanying Harry and the band. So the quartet will rehearse the sets, then we'll rehearse with the band quickly, and then have a break, get changed, and it's showtime. So I show up, we rehearse, I see Harry, he remembers me. Obviously I remember him. Sounds so ridiculous, but
Right.
say hi. And then after the rehearsal, I go to put on my concert clothes, and I have only shoes, only my heels. I don't have anything else. And, we're 30 minutes to showtime, and I can't go back to where I was staying to get my clothes. And I'm in jeans, right? Jeans and a tank top or something. And like, that was terror. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? So thankfully, one of the violinists had an extra tank top that fit me. And then one of the stage crew guys came downstairs, and anyway, what we decided to do was to make a dress out of the stage cloth, the black stage cloth. So they wrapped the stage cloth around my jeans, tied it with pink duct tape behind my back. So it actually looked like I had a little bustle, and it actually looked kind of nice.
Oh my
So I'm wearing
God.
jeans underneath this black stage cloth skirt. I have my black heels because that's where I remembered, and I've got my tank top on and go on stage. And of course, they tell Harry this, and they're all laughing at it. And Harry comes out and talks to me about it, and biggest compliment of my life, 100%. What's about to happen? So in the show, we're playing fine, and then Harry stops at breaks because he likes to interact with his audience, and he starts talking about how life happens, people come into your life, yada, yada, yada. He said, there's this cellist that I played on Broadway with, and she's here tonight, and she forgot her clothes. And he starts telling everybody the story. And then
Oh my
he
God.
asks me to stand up and model my outfit. And then he says, Beth's so hot, she can make a garbage bag look good. And I was like, that, if any, and I needed that at that time. That was right after my ex. That's right after I moved up from New York. You feel really broken, and so and I just had my my second son, so that was a nice boost to the ego and a nice gift
Right.
from spirit to give me that. So that was really funny and fun.
That's awesome. What a great
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
I want to get to the part because I want to know what the quantum moment is, because you've done such a wonderful job of sort of painting this picture of being this concert cellist. You've played with the who's who of musicians, and I guess that I want to get to now the point, Beth, of so you're coming back to Ottawa, you have your second child. What happens after that?
Mm. What happens after that is going down the rabbit hole, I should say, of so while I was drinking, I told you I was drinking while I was touring and in university and stuff. When I got to Ottawa, it got worse for sure. And it was never, never, ever around my children. It was always when they would be with their dad. So he would come up on occasion from New York City. And at first, I let him stay at my house while I stayed elsewhere, so that my kid had a stable place to be in during the transitions. And so when I would be away, then the inner dragons, the inner demons would come out, right? So I would just abuse alcohol. I would go on many dates with people, like just things that were, when you saw Beth, you never would have equated her to that side. Like you never, the two wouldn't go together, the two
Yeah.
halves.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into cocaine. And that was fun,
The
right?
social drug.
Social drug, because then you can party all day.
Yep.
But the crash was always awful. Um, so just again, not around my children, and it never affected my responsibilities as a cellist, as a teacher, or as a mother, but back behind and in the backstage of my life, I was abusing myself,
Yeah.
just abusing myself. Um, and so I would have periods where I wouldn't, and I could stop if I wanted to, but then that rumbling of that inner demon would start again, and I could feel it coming. You could feel it coming. And you're like, "Oh, okay, this weekend's gonna be a bender," you know? Um, and even though I was in therapy, very expensive therapy, I might add, and I'd been put on antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, everything that you're supposed to do. I was looking for meditation groups, reading self-help books, just trying desperately to silence or to get that inner demon or whatever away and to find myself. None of it was working. I mean, it felt good. I'm not going to lie. Like I go to therapy and it felt good to be validated.
Hmm.
Um, but the darkness was still there. Nothing could tap that darkness. So then I was having a period of where I wasn't drinking at all because I was like, oh, okay, this is enough. I'm done. Like I can't. It was a good year or so. And then I met the person that made me realize what love was. And it's not him that did it. It's my love for him, that connection. And it was nothing short of, for me, a spiritual connection. And it made me realize everything in my past wasn't real as far as love was concerned. While I loved other people, it was egoic love, right? I needed them to fill certain voids, right? Instead of this one, it was kind of like I had no choice but to love this person because it just was. It just was. So we fell in madly in love. It was this pretty intense relationship, and even how we came together was pretty serendipitous. Moved in with him, but he wasn't healthy at the time, going through a major transition. He's in the military. I wasn't healthy inside, really. I still didn't know who I was. It just it wasn't a solid foundation to build such a relationship on. So it inevitably did start to derail. And my insecurities and everything would come out. And what's funny is that when we're really faced with things that we want, that's when the truth comes out. That's when we start to create our realities. Because my biggest fear was being abandoned because of my experiences at the time. I started to create scenarios to make that happen. Right? Not by choice, not by choice. But so inevitably the demise of that relationship and the end of that relationship was the catalyst for me to finding myself, because I knew who I wanted to be when I was with him, but unfortunately all that darkness and everything that pulled me away from that was still there. So finally, when we broke up, and I can say this with absolute certainty, if I had not found shamanism, I would not be here today, because I hated myself that much, right? So that that was, we'll say, the death and resurrection moment. I had to go through the darkness in order to come out alive. And it's not fun, and it's not easy, and it's not quick, but it has to happen. It has
And
to
I
happen.
and I think that that's why most people never bother taking the journey,
They
at
don't.
least that journey, because it's much too painful.
No, they'll do circles around it, circles around it,
Yeah,
circles around
and you know, one of the things that's come up lately a lot, even with friends and family and people that you connect with, is that we use the excuse of helping others to sort of distract us from trying to go within ourselves.
it. Yeah, I was a great savior. Great savior.
Of
I grew
course.
up in a family of saviors.
Yeah,
Can't save yourself. Well, at least if I save somebody else, it makes me feel better.
that's right.
That's who I am. Then I can identify as that. There's either the victim or the savior, you know?
Yeah.
So
Oh, I
usually
know.
people will waffle between the two.
So you go and like, I mean, of all things, shamanism. I mean, that's a far cry from being a cellist.
Well, it's the healing arts. Yeah, it is. I mean, it took me a good, again, it found me. Thank God it found me. But it took me a good 2 years of, so I immersed myself in this spiritual healing course.
Tell me how you found it.
Um, I started to kind of look again along the line. You're looking for all these safety devices or these flotation devices of help, kind of thing. Like, oh, maybe this will work. Maybe this will stick. Oh, this doesn't work. And that's the problem, is that we're doing all of these things and we're trying to work on ourselves. And over time, especially if you don't, nothing changes and that darkness still remains inside of you, you just get more hopeless and more hopeless and more hopeless. And it's like, I said to you, life is like, it's like climbing a 14,000-foot mountain with waist deep snow in a blizzard. And so the more that you continuously look for ways to find help and to get better that don't work in the end, long term, the deeper that snow gets and the harder it is to keep climbing. Because then it's like, well, crap, nothing's going to work. I must really be broken.
Right.
Right. So while I was kind of looking for those avenues of help and healing, um, you kind of find, oh, you hear about this person, you hear about that person. And then I started looking into angel therapy and stuff. You're just looking for answers and things, because what didn't work isn't working, or what you tried isn't working. And through that, I heard about this Algonquin medicine man through the 8th Fire School of Shamanism. And he was starting a new program called Angel Fire, which was a combination of Algonquin shamanism and call it angel therapy. And so it just spoke to me, and I was like, you know what do I have to lose? Like, it's at that point, after that breakup, it was do or die. It was literally do or die. So I had nothing to lose. And so when I started it, I was skeptical for a good 2 years, right? Skepticism is healthy. I say that to my clients. I'm good with skepticism. Cynicism, no, right? So I was skeptical for the good 2 years. Oh, this isn't going to work. Oh, this isn't going to work. Oh, this isn't going to work this time. Okay, it may have worked last time, but this time, this issue, it's not going to work. And every time it was just like you had no choice but to heal. Because when you do this kind of training that I've done, our issues, we say shamanism is what our issues and our wounds run from, because they can't hide. They're defenseless against this form of training that I'm trained in, compared to anything else I've tried.
Right.
So yeah, after 2 years of studying and healing myself, because I didn't go into it to be a healer. I went into it to heal myself. I realized, A, how much it worked, B, how much more people needed it, and C, how good I was at also practicing it. So I went to the next level, did another 2 years of training, and then I went for next level, another 2 years, so 6 years. So essentially like the master's level of this type of quantum shamanism, energy medicine. And it's been transformative. And it was
Yeah.
through that process where I really finally figured out who I was.
So how would you answer the question now?
Who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I? Well, right now, I'm somebody that's here to be of service to the highest good of humanity, to bring out the best in people, to help others through that darkness. Everybody talks about light workers,
Yeah.
light workers. No, I'm a darkness worker. Like, I go into the darkness with a torch, with a lantern to help guide people through.
Mm.
And I'm not going to do the work for them, but I'm going to help them learn how to do it themselves. I'm going to help them find the answers within themselves, empower themselves to want to keep going, to want to save themselves. And so that's the greatest purpose here. It's a deeper purpose because you're giving back to humanity and to the world in a new way. While music is wonderful and it's beautiful and
Inspiring.
inspiring, until you can take all of your pain and transmute it and change it into helping others, to making the world a better place, even if it's just one person, that's where real power is, if we want to call it power.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And
We're
that's
not
how we
that
change the
different,
world.
Beth. We're not that different in that regard.
No.
In fact, I used the vehicle, you used the cello, and I used the vehicle of martial arts, at least from my perspective, to help people, to inspire people, to motivate people. But I love that you're sort of re-emphasizing the things that I tell my clients, that all the masters that walk the planet didn't said you're here to learn anything. You're just here to remember who you are.
Mm.
That the journey is in remembering who you are.
Mm.
Because once you get to the point of remembering who you are, the work that you do comes from the highest light. And it's you're not kidding. It's a tough journey. I thought I knew who I was. And then I found an esoteric school and said, geez, I'm not, that's just one aspect of who I am. I love martial arts. I'm a martial artist. I've been one for 25 years. Somebody joked and said, Mel, you did a life sentence. But I'm on the search myself, Beth, to find the other parts. Because I don't think that my life is just about one thing. I think that there's a need to investigate further, go deeper, if you will, to understanding who I am.
Mm.
And so I love, and this is why, again, I came on to this show today talking about how your story resonates with me so much, because it's the constant search
Mm.
of trying to answer the question, who am I?
Yeah. That's the quest for the Holy Grail.
Of course. But I see the world. I'm very blessed to have seen what it's like to work with now with corporate America as a facilitator for an organization called SEAL Team Leaders, and I get a chance to see what corporate America's like. It's no wonder why I personally was a circle in a square when it came to the corporate world. I
Mm,
just didn't fit.
mm.
I could never fit in that environment. I was just I had my experience. I worked for Coca-Cola and everybody was so happy that I got a job with the big red machine. And it was the most horrific experience of my life. So, what do you tell people? Like, talk us through a little bit about some of the work that you're doing now. You have these certifications, you have this, you have these healing modalities. So if I came to you, Beth, and after the show, I say to you, Beth, look, I really want to work on going deeper and understanding who I am. What's the steps?
Well, first we need to figure out where you're at now. Like, so I love when I ask people who they are, and often you'll get a roster of, like you said, accreditations and our understanding from our limited perspective or
You
lens.
get titles.
Titles, but also I'm kind, I'm
Yeah.
compassionate, I'm empathetic. All those wonderful altruistic aspects of being human. But what I want to know is, who are you when you get triggered? Who are you when you face adversity? Who are you when um, you feel angry or you need to forgive when it's not easy to forgive? That's the truth. That's who you actually are, not all the stuff that you pad over that, right? That's the darkness inside is actually who you are and what's driving the bus. And so if we can access all of that and start to figure out, well, why are you those things? Why do you act or react this way when XYZ happens? Why do you feel this way when this happens? And then we can heal it and remove them and resolve that, the reasons why, then they're no longer there. So they're no longer part of the hard drive that's creating your reality and who you are, or at least who you think you are, or you pretend to be. So then that way, when you are faced with adversity or you are faced with the unknowns of life, because they're going to happen, um,
Amen
you
to
have
that.
more control. You have more control. You're able to take more decisive actions. You're more uh, even in your emotions. You don't react as volatile. You know what I mean.
Right.
You don't act in volatile ways.
Yeah.
Um, you're just more when you're at the core of you. I say the center of your real existence, your core. You no longer need to feed those wounded aspects of yourself, right? You're not going to react in different ways because it's not even there. It's not even part of this of you anymore. So, so we figure out, okay, who are you? What's going on in your life right now? How are you feeling? What's coming up? Because often, because I work in the quantum aspect of time, where time is relative, right? Your non-conscious mind, as soon as if you said to me, or in your mind, if you made the conscious choice to meet with me, your non-conscious mind is already there. Your energy is already there. So the session's already happening. So when you actually come and you sit down in the chair or get on my healing table, stuff is already starting to come up. You might not understand why or what it is, but that's my job as the shaman or the medicine spiritual healer, to help you understand what you don't understand and help you see what you can't see. And then most importantly, help you heal what you don't think you can heal.
And in these modalities that you've now acquired, is a lot of it just asking the right questions?
Uh, Yes, but I'm not a therapist, so I don't give you advice. But yes, it's we call it tracking.
Okay.
So it's asking. So when you come to me with a problem or issue, the way that you see it, you're seeing it behind the lens of woundedness, behind the lens of bias, behind the lens of fear, behind like so many different things are clouding your actual perception. So it's my job, because I can and I have the ability to track and get an understanding what's underneath that. You may come to me with a belief, I will never succeed, or I this person's a jerk, or whatever. And it's my job to get underneath that belief and find the real actual belief and the real emotions and the real thoughts, and then resolve them and heal them and change them. There's always a healing. There's no, everything I do has to have a healing. We don't just go and find out information. We go find out information and heal it. And then often we'll give you a resource. What do you need? Okay, maybe I am not enough. Great, we heal it. It's not the absence of the wound that's the healing. It's the presence of what? The absence of I am not enough. We can do that, but we have to replace it with something else. I am enough. I am whatever. Okay, so there's two sides of a coin. There's always the wound, but then there's the healing. The wound and the healing are always right next to each other. They're closer than you think.
And Beth, so do you use tools in these sites? Like for example, I know that in a lot of shamanic practices they use a lot of sage.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I burn sage, and when I do space clearings and things like that, I'll burn uh, tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. Um, but sometimes I use sage just to clear some of the
Yeah.
energy. But no, no, I don't use a lot of tools. I have all the tools are. It sounds very woo woo to say it, but and it's a very giant step in suspension of your disbelief. But I am the medicine essentially, and the tools are around me with the things that I in the resources that I work with that you can't see.
Okay, so I'm going to say a word to you. Does the word Enochian mean anything to you?
Nothing.
Because when I studied, we did a lot of work with angels, and we followed a lot of what Dr. John Dee did. Dr. John Dee and the Enochian evocation of Dr. John Dee is the name of the book,
Okay.
and Enochian just means angelic.
Okay.
And we would work with the angels in whatever we were trying to do. So I'm just curious because you did mention that there was sort of a blend of shamanic practices with some angel
Mhm.
work.
And the angel work comes from Saint Kateri, which is she was a Mohawk, say princess, but she was canonized. So she left her tribe. She was actually ostracized, and then she
Hmm.
joined the Catholic religion and became a saint. And so a lot of the work that we learned was from her teachings and her experiences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And is there any ritual that's involved with what you're doing?
We call them ceremonies, like, but no, it's not. There's no rituals where we're going to sit and chant, or I'm going to shake rattles or anything. There's
Right.
nothing. Um, there's nothing cultural about what I do, even though I've studied with an Algonquin medicine man.
Right.
Nothing that he taught or teaches is cultural in any way, shape, or form. It's all part of his lineage from his grandfathers, grandfathers, great grandfathers,
Right.
and it's all. If you just think of it more in the line of energetic healing, conscious healing, versus um, cultural healing or cultural ceremonies or rituals in any way. So when we go into ceremony, it may look like I'm just meditating, but I'm going into ceremony, which means I'm connecting with whatever it is that I need in order to facilitate
The healing.
the healing. And sometimes I'll engage you or whomever I'm with a guided journey, a healing journey, where we will go either into the lower world, which is the non-conscious mind, which is where all of our wounds are, and we'll go look and search it, helping you get the answers that you need, resolving things,
Right.
and then adding a resource. We can also work in the middle world, which is where we are now, or we can go into the upper world, which is where most of the creation stuff happens, where our higher self resides, our spirit guides, our ancestors, things like that.
Interesting. Because as you know, I took classes that were called Healers Academy, and you would learn a variety of modalities, things where you used crystals and things where you used essential oils, and there was even something called a laser light healing. So there was all of these. We had all of these tools that were used in facilitating the healing, which is why I ask you the question because I
Mm.
mean, listen, I'll tell you, for all my friends watching, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to Beth for a healing. You can count on it because I'm very curious in how these modalities work and the energies in which you connect
Mm.
to facilitate the healing.
I think how I can best answer that. So I teach quantum shamanic Reiki. So Reiki is a form of energy healing
Correct. Yeah.
that came out of Japan. It is not a Japanese healing art. It's only called a Japanese word Reiki because the man who rediscovered it was
It was
Japanese.
Japanese. Yeah.
But then Reiki by any other name is still the same thing. It's just energy, life force energy that's around us, that's connected to all of us. So the quantum aspect of that and what we teach is to help people understand that you are Reiki, you are healing. You don't need these crystals. While they help, while those will enhance things, it separates you from the healed outcome. So we work in it where you are the healed outcome. For me, in order for me to heal
I like
somebody, I
that.
have to see them already in a healed state.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
like that.
need things, So it's really it gets into a belief system. That's where the quantum aspect of entrainment comes into play. So if you hold the healed outcome for somebody and you are the space of healing, you are it. You become it. So does everything around you. And through the nature of entrainment, when one cell and another cell, two different cells, and they're essentially the two different cells, one will entrain to become the same as the other one, even if they're different spaces. So that's the nature of the healing we do. We don't need tools because we are the
We
tool.
are the tools.
We are the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it's funny because every healer in every lineage that I've spoken to really all say the same thing, especially those that are of any value. Because as we talked about yesterday, I think that the spiritual world has a lot of charlatans in it.
Yes.
Pay me money and I'll heal you, and you know. But I do speak to a lot of people, and their comments are, I don't heal anybody. I just help facilitate the healing. The healing comes from the person that's there because they are the ones that are going to heal themselves.
Yes, but you
Right?
have to, you yourself have to be in that healed state. The
Right. You
healer
have to
has
be
to be in
in
that
that
space
energetic
for
state.
healing. And so if you're not, you're not going to be
As effective.
as effective.
Makes
You won't
sense.
be. You
Makes
might
sense.
project, you're going to be biased in some of the stuff you do or say. I've been to healers, very proficient and famous ones in the Ottawa region, who gave advice based on their own woundedness. And it was the same advice they gave to everybody. Why do I know that? Because other friends have told me, oh, yeah, that's what they said to me.
Hmm.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, they told me never to get divorced or, whatever. So you have to be careful who you see, and you'll know. Just like I knew with my children's father that he would leave me, right? I knew that we weren't meant to be together. You know, you'll know when you meet somebody, is this person for me or not? Um, and that includes therapists, psychologists, uh, anyone.
Loving
So
relationships,
loving relationships,
of course.
but yeah, there are a lot of wounded healers, and it
Mm,
gets scary, because we like to feel secure in who we're seeing. Um, and certification doesn't guarantee that somebody's not either.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Beth, let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on. I kind of want to get to the projects because I want to know what's next. I mean, again, an incredible life story. Um, you moved to be a healer. What are you working on now?
Mm. Well, I still see clients regularly, but I am say an entrepreneur, motivational speaker. I love working with groups, doing workshops. I love working with teens. So this summer, I'm going to be offering more workshops for adults and teens as well, so they can do them together, where we combine the spiritual healing um, with archery, because you're really sometimes you need to feel the physical capacity of your own abilities mixed with the inner capacities of your own abilities. You need both, right? You need to be strong, healthy, uh, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally as well. So I really am big on combining all aspects for that whole warrior or person.
Hmm.
So I'm doing those workshops. I'm very excited. I'm going to be announcing in the next couple of days um, a hiking retreat with some teens down in the Adirondacks. Do some camping and hiking with a friend of mine who's a NLP practitioner. And then my dream that I saw 7 years ago while in ceremony. So in meditation is another word for it,
Mhm.
but it's deeper, where I'm in trance and I'm really connecting to spirit. And I was shown this center, and it's a center to really strengthen the warrior within us all. And at the time, I was going through, a lot. Right? I was like, okay, well, how am I going to make this happen? I'm still broken. How is this,
Right.
how's this going to work? So slowly but surely over the years, I started. Minimum age for the teens is 13. Yes. I started to take steps, do workshops, and start kind of combining the physical aspects of, the warrior training, we'll say, with
Yeah.
sword fighting, with the spiritual, emotional, mental training of meditation, mindfulness, and all that energy healing. And then I opened up a business, which had been open 1 year, and where we did just that. I worked with teens, I worked with women empowerment classes, and then we also offered axe and knife throwing, sword fighting, self defense. Again, strengthen people from the inside out. Um, and then when the pandemic hit, circumstances that happened, we had to close because we'd only been open a year, and we slipped through the cracks for any of the government help. But that's fine. The dream was still there. The seeds were planted. Everything's working. The right people are coming to me. Um, and so now, as it's happening, we are in the early stages of developing this gigantic, beautiful retreat center to really strengthen people, again, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and bring out that warrior within us, which will help us feel more resilient um, within ourselves, so that we can know us, know ourselves, get to the core of who we are, and we can achieve our dreams. We can be who we want to be, right? Not who we either pretend to be or who we've kind of been shaped into. So this is happening, and I have an amazing team of people. We've got some early stage investors. We're looking to purchase a lot of land to build on. Amazing aspects of it. It's called Valhalla, which, as some people know, it is the Norse in Norse mythology. It is essentially the place where all the warriors who are slain in battle will go in the afterlife to celebrate and feast and live out the rest of their immortal lives with Odin. So we're creating this Valhalla on Earth, this place to celebrate, to be, to discover who you are, to love yourself, and to connect
Sounds
with others.
amazing. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I'm very
You know a
like,
Muay Thai person, Beth?
it's part of it. It's part of it. That's what I said yesterday. We're going to talk more. Um, so I'm very like this, just when I think about it, my heart resonates, and everybody that's working, it's everybody's paths. When you talk to everyone, are all leading to this place. We say all paths lead to Valhalla. So that's the biggie. And then I've got these little projects working with teens and youth, and I'm just very blessed. I feel very, very, very blessed to have experienced what I've experienced, to even the bad stuff, especially the bad stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, of course.
Because I wouldn't be here had they not happened.
If you didn't have them, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Putin Nation writes that you should speak to Marie Bodine, who is a level 2 certified Wim Hof instructor.
love it. Yes, please
So,
connect me.
so
Yeah,
we will connect you to Marie Bodine,
thank you.
she's been on the show here a couple times actually, and she does some breathing stuff, and so you'll really resonate with her as
Amazing.
well.
That'll work well in our hot and cold therapy spots. So,
That's right. There you go.
yeah. So it's uh, it's been quite the journey. It's not over yet, but I'm just grateful and full of joy. So
Yeah. Just Putin Nation says we will do that. We will hook you up with Marie Bodine. She's another beautiful woman who has had her own hardships and talked about her hardships on the show, and this led her to understanding the importance of breath and breath work.
beautiful,
So
beautiful.
all in alignment, all in alignment. So how does one, Beth, get in contact with you if, for example, they want to get a healing done, or start the process? Is there packages? How does it all work?
Well, I actually have a summer special for July and August where I'm offering 40% off sessions. Um, it's a great opportunity. I mean, the past couple of years have been rough, right? You know that. I know that you know that.
Yep.
Um, we've all experienced loss and fear and sadness and grief and all this compounded despair. And there's a lot of unknowns, and it's not over yet. And so it's a great opportunity to give to yourself. So to heal again some of the effects of that, to find relief from that, but then again to build resources for whatever is to come, so that you have the capacity to face it yourself, and to continue to persevere. Um, So they can get in touch with me through my website, bethsturdevant.com. I'm also on Facebook at It's Beths, plural, official, as well as Instagram. It's Beths, plural, um, official. Thank you so much, Putin Nation. Put my summer special up there.
There you go.
Um, and then the workshops I'll be putting on my website over the weekend, as well as this teen Adirondack hiking trip, which I'm the Adirondack. If you've never been there, it's a special place. It's only 4 hours away from Ottawa, so
Mm.
I'm really looking forward to that, empowering them, climbing some mountains. We're also going to do some fun stuff like we'll go to they have an old fashioned movie theater there, a really great candy store, things like that. So um, yeah, so that's how people can get in touch with me and stay in progress. There's also our Valhalla website, which is valhalla-ottawa.com. So people, I would recommend people get on the mailing list for that so that you can stay up to date on what's happening with that amazing project. And if anybody has any connections they want to link my way for that project, I am all about collaborations. And like I said, all paths lead to Valhalla. So um, welcome them all. So
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I don't know if there's a woman, her name is Wendy, who's watching, but she's got a couple of teens that I think would be a great fit for this kind of adventure, if you will, or this experience.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
I think that I always like to close the show because we're getting close, believe it or not, Beth, to 90 minutes already.
I know.
But what's if there's some wisdom that you could impart, you know, whether it's about your own journey and what kept you going,
Mm,
or advice that you would share to somebody who's going through a dark time in their life
mm,
and they're interested, they just don't know where to go. You're in the hole, you don't know how to start the climb upwards again. Is there something that you could impart?
absolutely. Is to have a clear idea of where you're going, who you want to be. You might not be there right now, but if you can, even if it's an image of someone, a character, something, somebody that you idolize. For me, when I was at my darkest moments, it was Lagertha from Vikings. And I had her in my mind. I said, that's who I am. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to get there. And so if Lagertha can do it, I can do it. And so along the way, through all the dips and the highs and the whatevers, I always knew which direction my compass was going. I knew where I was going. And so I had moments where I would fall, I'd make mistakes, and then I'd ask myself, well, what would Lagertha do? If we think of, again, we go to the quantum aspects of healing, I am Lagertha. Lagertha is me. So in order to rise up to that, I have to know exactly where I'm going. So really having a clear idea so that, again, when life throws you sideways and throws those wrenches at you, you have the ability to get back up sooner, get back on the path, and keep climbing. And if I so, did you
Go
want to say
ahead.
something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Beth, what I was going to ask you was, is that, well, what about if you don't know?
Then you start with, that's a great question. You start with, who do you not want to be? How do you not want to be? And then you flip it around. So let's say um, you're wanting to be healthier physically. Okay, you don't like the way you look. You're drinking, or you're overweight, or you um, don't like your job, or you get really defensive and reactive, things like those, like all those kind of qualities that people are very, very quick to list to things they don't like about themselves. So we can start with that. So then all you do is you take the opposites of those, and that's who you want to be. So if I don't like that I'm overweight, well, then I want to be what? Perhaps feel better, in
In
shape, maybe
shape.
there's a
Yeah.
number, whatever it is for you. I don't want to be reactive and volatile. So that means I want to be calm. I want to be in control of my emotions, right? So you have to First, start with a list of the I don't like these, which isn't fun to look at, but it's the truth because that's who you are right now. That doesn't mean that's who you always will be, but that's where the warrior aspect comes in because the warrior part of everybody is going to be the one that actions all of those changes. It's going to be the one that's going to go into the darkness and find their way out. So that combined with, having a clear vision of what that looks like for you so that you can bounce back faster, get back on that path a little bit quicker. Um, and I'll share this before we go. One of the biggest tests for me on that path, when I was on that path to discovering who I was when a man broke into my house in 2016. And I was asleep. My kids were asleep. And he held me at gunpoint, broke into my bedroom. And he took me, well, first of all, he said, do as I say and nobody gets hurt. Okay. So I went with him. He led me outside into my car and told me to drive to the bank. And so I drove to the bank and he emptied out my bank account. And the whole time, you're not sure. You don't know what they want. You don't know what the next step is. They don't give you instructions as to,
There's
okay,
no
now you're going to
handbook.
do X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
right? So all I knew inside was that I had to remain calm. He was in control, and my children were never going to know about this. He was not getting back in the house. So whatever happened after the bank, I was never going to let him back in my house. But as fate would have it, he told me to drive, led me back to my house, not actually at my house, but he had me pull over, ask for whatever else was in my wallet, and then he left the car. And to this day, my children do not know about it. Someday we'll sit down and I'll tell them about it. But what was interesting about that moment and the beauty of it, and I say the beauty of it because even though it was an extremely traumatic experience and I never want to experience that again or would ever wish that upon anybody, was that in the moment I felt compassion for him. In the moment I felt compassion for him amongst the terror. Once I was out of the house and my children were safe, I felt compassion in the car when he was asking me for more out of my wallet because the fact that this man had to rob a full-time single mother after Christmas, his life must have been so much worse than mine.
Of course.
And I genuinely wanted to give him more. I genuinely did. And I remember had a check in my wallet. And I was like, can I sign this over? Like, can I sign? Like, you can have it. Is there a way for you to? Anyway, he obviously couldn't. But that was the feeling, the genuine feeling, and that after the fact, because of what I do and because of who I am, and because I had such a strong connection of where I was going, I was able to resolve the trauma from that, to not carry it on, and to not continue to play the victim after that moment happened. And so I was able to heal faster and get back on that path a lot faster because I knew where I was going, because I knew who I was, and because I genuinely was compassionate. So it's just a great example of, even while you're on the path, things might happen. But as long as you stay connected and rooted to where you're going, you'll be okay.
Lovely. Well said. What a great story. Beth, I could talk to you all day. I said
Likewise.
that I said that to you yesterday. You just have so much experience in life, and I think that's to be honest what makes a great healer. is someone who just doesn't read a book and goes get a certification and, says, okay, well, I'm going to open up a healing studio. It's it's not really the way it works. We used to joke about that with MMA being, becoming so mainstream. People were going to go and people would offer 2-day courses in martial arts, and then they'd open up a school. And I'm going,
Mm.
really? This is you think you're a martial artist because you went to two days of an MMA training course? I've been at it 25 years and still continue to learn every time I'm on the mat.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that, and I think that's why in my heart I know that whatever you decide to put your energy to is going to be a great hit, and I want to hang around people like yourself who have that life experience and are moving towards sharing their light in a way that really identifies, and we talked about this in the show before in other shows, about really starting to understand the difference between individuality and personality. So is using their individuality, the gifts of their individualness, and sharing it with the world. And I
Mm.
think that that's exactly where you are, and it's really very beautiful.
Thank you. That means a lot. I truly, truly appreciate that.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for sharing all of your stories. Even Franny just wrote, love the ending. Yeah, it
Mm.
really, really, really great. Well,
Fran.
Beth, here's what's going to happen. We are going to put you backstage as I sort of give my final thoughts on the show. So please hold on for another few more minutes. Josh, let us know where we are rating to. And thank you, Beth. Thank you
Thank
so
you so much.
much for your time and your energy today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mel.
You're awesome. Whew. Another fantastic show. I I'm not sure what to say in my final thoughts, but what comes to me is that I've met so many people in my life, but few who really want to get to the root of who they really are. They identify with their job by their profession. They identify with the things they are doing in their life at the moment. But few take the journey to go deeper in understanding, or as I say, remembering who they really are. Imagine, imagine that you could go and spend some time with someone like Beth to really get to the root of of your individuality. In the course that I taught, Empower Thyself, individuality comes from the Holy Spirit, and personality is something that we create to show the world. What about if we operated from a true sense, from a true place of individuality? This is what comes to mind when I think of what Beth's doing and the work that she's doing. I hope that you, wherever you are listening to this, whether you're live or whether you're listening to the recorded, the recorded version of the show, that you take some time to start thinking about who you are. Are you living your highest self? And if the answer is no, great, because now we got a place to start working from. I loved how Beth in the show talked a little bit about, well, what about if you don't know who you want to be? Well, let's talk about the things that you don't like first, because then from what you don't like, we can get to the things that you like, because those are the opposites. Really, really, really powerful show today, my friends. Thank you for joining us. Today, Josh says we are off to upstate New York to listen to DJ Mabel music because I think her stream title lines up well with today's shows. When life gives you lemons, play house music. Yes. Yes, Josh. As a Chicago house DJ myself, I couldn't agree more. When life gives you lemons, play house music. My friends, another great show next week. The birthday edition of the Coffee and Biscotti Show. I hope to see you all here next week on the Coffee and Biscotti Show. So from all of us here, wishing you and your family and your communities a wonderful, wonderful Friday and an even better weekend. Or as I always say, an awesomer weekend. Franny, much love to you. Always grateful to have you on the show. All my friends and family that joined me here. Thank you, Sandra Mio. Tuan, thank you for being here today with us. Puti Nation, as always, I always say this every show, everybody needs a Josh Leslie in their life. So, love you, brother. Rate us away, my friend. This is Crew Mel saying, I'm out of here. Have yourself an awesome weekend. Peace.